All right, so my name is Sue Winker. I'm the director of the program, and I'm going to kick us off today to acknowledge that we are on a land grant through the DeJope, a place they call DeJope, or the Four Lakes, and so we just want to acknowledge that before we start. Additionally, I want students who are in red t-shirts because they had other things today, and so I just wanted to share appreciation with that. So today you're going to start out with me, kind of overview of the program, and then we're going to have information for clinical education. Dual degree program. Dr. Schubert, who you probably have contact with, will talk about admissions to talk with the students. And then we'll end with a tour and some summative comments. So for my part today, you'll be with me for about the next 20-25 minutes. And we're here as listed on the slide here. For folks, you also, and we're going to kind of stick to this corner, so we're going to walk around just because they're going to lose us online if we do that. So if you feel we're stuck, that's kind of why. And I invite people online to ask questions also. So we do have someone moderating the chat. If you're in the room and you have a question, please feel free to ask it as it comes up. You do not have to wait until one of us stops talking. So please feel free to engage as the question pops up for you. So the first thing I want to go over of the physical therapy program, and I highlighted a couple points here to consider. One of our visions is needs of the state of Wisconsin and beyond. So for us in Wisconsin, that's called the Wisconsin. You may we try to also that, and we do that through leadership in evidence-based physical therapy education, physical therapy profession. So our hopes are that when you go through our program, that you are an adult learner and your education has just started a new chapter when you graduate from here. So those adult learning characteristics. All right, is that better? Okay. So our idea is that we want you to continue your growth in the profession. As a student, you will become members of the American Physical Therapy Association, which by you also then become members of the American Physical Therapy chapter. And through that, you have opportunities to continue your learning and involvement in networking. So this is something that we want you to advance the profession. Our mission is to graduate autonomous generalist. So I just wanted to highlight, because I mean you're in a silo and that you make all the decisions. Autonomous means you have the knowledge and the attitudes and beliefs, conversations with patients, clients, other healthcare providers, which we'll talk about in a moment, to make decisions based on your patient or client. So sometimes when we first became a DPT over 10 years ago, people were really offended about that word autonomous. Thank you. And thought we just were kind of full of ourselves in the PT profession, and that is not the case. The other word is generalist. So when you graduate from this program, you will be well versed in an abundance of different roles. You are going to graduate as a clinician primarily, but you will have skills in research, in administration, and leadership. You'll have opportunities to be in the community and manage pro bono clinics, et cetera. So you're a generalist in that you can obtain many different roles when you graduate. And yet we also do set you up for the ability to go into residencies. So beyond physical therapy, there's acute care residencies, orthopedic residencies, there's sports. I'm not going to be able to list them all, but you'll be well positioned for those. And we have opportunities in the program to also do electives. So we have a couple that are pretty consistent, which is our sports elective, and then also Tai Chi. We're working on an advanced clinical decision-making elective that will launch this spring. And there's a plethora of other options. So you're well positioned to move already beyond graduation into other life developments. Whoops, where'd this go? I hit it, didn't I? Yep, talk with my hands. All right. So these are the three keys to your experience, is that you want to achieve things while you're here, We want to give you opportunities in a way that you feel like you belong here. The students may confirm this, but you become an individual who is housed in this building more than you'll see your family, probably more than you'll see any significant others or your friends. And so you have a PT family within this building and within the different courses. And then you also want to have impact, which we'll talk about in a moment. This is an old slide deck. So the organizational chart here is that we have the chancellor, of course, in the nation. And then we have a dean. Dean Golden just recently left, and we have a new dean, Dean Huja, who is the first female dean of the School of Medicine and Public Health on campus. And then we also have Associate Dean Petty, and then myself, and then the faculty and the staff. So there's about 17 people in the PT program that make up the PT program itself directly. And then we have some opportunities within this that include some of the outcomes is that we're top in the nation, in essence, not number one, but we are in the top 33% of the nation. And last year we were still ranked in the top 10. Another opportunity here is the Center for Interprofessional Practice and Education. This is one of the benefits to coming here because I'm thinking of the students. I think it's a benefit. It is a requirement that you work with professionals outside of PT. So it can be physician assistants, nursing, vet med, medical students, PA, genetic counselors, and that is through the Center for Interprofessional Practice and Education. So we really believe in that model, that it's a collaborative care model. We have global health and service projects. I'm not going to touch too much on that because Dr. Hartman's going to cover global health and the dual degree in more detail. We also have the dual MPH degree, which I just said he'll talk about. And then cadavers. We have cadavers instead of doing 3D learning, which is a very helpful model because you actually get to touch, feel, I'll add smell to the tanks, but it's an experience where over the tanks, you get to meet your classmates, right? You are in tank pair or tanks of groups of 4 to 5 people. You learn, you get your hands on that experience. And then standardized patients is something we also use for education. So we have people who are trained actors and actresses to be your patients. So when you go into a simulation, you're not always working with your peers. So you really have someone who's new to you. So you have that model of a patient or a client. And then last, we have the simulation center and the clinical teaching and assessment center. So we go over to the hospital where the simulation center is, and we work in inpatient environments on collaborative care, on skills talks. Dr. Duncan just won an award for her academic achievements using the simulation center in her cardiopulmonary class. So again, we're well versed in being able to, make that work with other health professionals and within our population of students. This is just an example of all the faculty that we have and the diverse interests that they bring to the table. So I think one of the benefits to this size university again is that if you don't see on that list yourself, you talk to me, you talk to a faculty member you connect with, and we'll work on that connection for you. We are thankfully resource rich in many ways. And so this is one of them in that people just have a broad spectrum of what they're interested in. We have many folks who are orthopedic specialists, clinical specialists. So I'm a geriatric clinical specialist. We have orthopedic clinical specialists, neuro, peds, et cetera, on faculty to dive down a little bit deeper. On the right there is an example of some of our research with biomechanics, Tai Chi, relative energy deficiency. You can get into manual therapy and pain science. We're blessed to have 2 faculty who are focusing on pain science and how is that changing the world of physical therapy. So that is something that's new and up and coming. Our curriculum has basically 3 tracks. There's a basic science, a clinical science, and then a clinical practice track. And so within those tracks, it's cyclical. So when you first come to our program in the summer, you have anatomy, you have surface palpation, and those 2 tend to overlap. And then you have a professional seminar course. Every semester you are here, you have a professional seminar course. And that gives you the breadth of ethics and values, preparing you for your first internship and your first job. We go over how to be a teacher, because as physical therapists, you're going to be teachers. You're educating patients every day of your life, every patient you see. We talk about the different folks you may see in clinic and how do you interact and relate to them. So that's part of every semester. And then you have these tracks. And so if you learned anatomy in the summer and you found out how to palpate a muscle or a ligament or a tendon, then the next semester you're going to apply biomechanics to it now and tissue physiology. And then from there, you're going to apply now motor control to that. So everything layers and builds on the other. And so the first year is really foundational and kind of the basic science and the clinical science. And then you get into second year where you're applying that to different patient populations that are not kind of the typical. Any questions so far? No? Okay. All right, this is a very busy slide. I don't expect you to be able to see it all, but it just kind of goes through those tracks as year 1, year 2, year 3, just to give you an example of that. So our culture, again, the customs and social institutions that we have, we are, I think, I would like to perceive ourselves as professional, but yet we know how to have fun. We don't laugh at people, we laugh with people. We hold people up when they're having a really crappy day, because not every day is a good day, right, students? I mean, some days are tough, and that's okay. You know, again, you're a family. You hold people up when they're having a bad day. You chip in when you need to. You reach out to the faculty, the Student Academic Success Services. We have that through financial assistance that they can guide you in that. We have connections with UHS, mental health services. We have a resource book that is sent out weekly that you can just click on the link and is updated to see what's available in the campus, not just within our program or SMPH. So lots of different things to get involved in there. This is specific running, excuse me, so I looked at Dr. Nelson's. This is specific research that is going on. So again, this is related to our faculty, but it's not limited to our faculty. For example, Dr. Gillick works at the Weissman Center. She affiliates with us. And so students often do pediatric research with her. I'd mentioned Tai Chi early with Dr. Hallisey. That also is an elective, but that can be some research that she is working on with people who are from Milwaukee. Tai Chi Prime. Myself, I'm working on the Healthy Aging Initiative with the Center for Interprofessional Practice and Education, and that is more education based research in terms of preparing students in the health professions to be able to collaborate and manage people with dementia and their caregivers. So I share that just as it's a wide variety that, again, you can have exposure to. And this is just a really busy slide because there's a lot going on here. As an example, just this week, we had a visiting lecture. We have a golf outing going on today. We have the Meet the Program today. And so we're a busy group of people, but it's in a fun way. And this just highlights some of these things again. So DIPSO is our student organization. And within that, like I said, the golf outing is going on today. It's our 8th one, I believe. Is that right? I think it's our 8th annual golf outing. The winter formal is for fun for all the students to go to. Bucky's Race for Rehab is another fundraiser, just as the golf outing is, and that both of those raise funds for DIPSO to also give back out to the community and to help pro bono in the Medic Clinic. And PT Pals are people that you can connect with over the summer from a first year to a second year. So we try to start to connect people early in the program so they have someone to talk to and share things with. The Medic Clinic, again, is required. It's an outpatient clinic. It's almost a sort of like a urgent care clinic where you would go in, see a person, you might have one follow-up, but then you might not see them again. And the nice thing with that is, again, we have community physical therapists who are the supervisors of that clinic. So as students, you get to rotate through different people other than the faculty, and you start to network with people in the community and learn about what does clinical life look like in that environment. Pro bono, the Duane Neuromuscular Pro Bono Clinic is a completely different clinic. That is for people with neurological conditions who are either underserved in terms of their insurance or they don't have insurance. Dr. Dobby, if you have not met her, she's one of the faculty members who works in pro bono along with a couple other faculty. And it's a student-led organization, again, as Medic is. But these folks come back every week once the semester starts. So they're more of a returning type of situation for physical therapy services. And then again, global health trips, interprofessional I talked about already. Just a lot, you can take more electives, like I have medical Spanish up there. Those, you have already, in this program, you've already maxed out the tuition, the number of credits you need. So when you take an elective, you don't get charged more. You've already have your maximum number of credits. So you can take another elective if you're interested in doing that. We also have advocacy for moving on. So legislative day is something we require students to go to. It occurs every other year. So you'll either go as a first year or a second year in the fall. And because the Capitol's right by us, you connect with the faculty who'll be going. We give you a little preparation as to what to, what to expect. And then you go to the Capitol and you speak with legislatures and you advocate for whatever is kind of going on in the profession at that moment. So it kind of varies from year to year. The spring and fall conference, as a student, you might present a poster there. Faculty present educational topics. I think we have probably this year it's in Wisconsin, or in Madison. So we have quite a few faculty presenting. And then the American Physical Therapy Combined Sections meeting, the program tries to offset that cost. So it's more reasonable for students to attend. And usually students who are in their second year of their education will attend that. And then they also fundraise and look for grants to help offset that. So this year it's in Anaheim, California, and next year it's in Philadelphia, and 3 years it's in Chicago. So it's kind of all over the nation. One of the big questions we get is, should you work or not work as a student? And it really depends. There are so many variables to answer that question that I cannot answer that for you. It's the start of a self-reflective process though. Who am I? How do I function? What is my capacity? What is the job I'm looking to do? And taking all those things into consideration, then deciding, should I work X number of hours, don't work hours at all? And so I just gave a couple of options. So some of the students will work as a receptionist at a senior center or a nursing home. They may not have a lot of activity, right? So they might bring their books with them and do some work while they're working, and their employer's fine with that because they're still doing their job. But if you're a server or a barista and you're directly with people, you're not going to get any homework done, right? You are on your feet and you are moving. So that job doesn't lend itself to have some flexibility. Hours may be very different. You might be closing from classes end here like at 4:30, so you might work from 5 till close. That impacts your sleep, that impacts your time to study again. So you just really have to think about all the different opportunities. We do have instructional assistants, which is different than a TA-ship. We have instructional assistants within the program who apply for positions like in the spring. So the DPT ones will apply for these positions in the spring to help out with anatomy and help out with the surface palpation class that coming summer. Some of the students actually take on TA-ships, teaching assistants across campus. That's a heavy lift. So you will have a benefit that your tuition is paid for, but you could be setting up the lab. You could be the one teaching, or you could be the one grading papers. You could be the one leading a discussion thread. So again, when you apply for a TA-ship, if you're interested, you just have to be very mindful of, again, when that occurs, what your workload is for class, when are the block schedules. We have outside activities. And so you don't want to have these competing demands that might add more stress to your current workload. Outcomes, again, I'll have they're very strong. We have 100% pass rate for the national exam. We have 100% employment rate for folks who choose to be employed after graduation. All right, any questions before I hand it off to Dr. Duncan? Yeah. For shadowing? Yeah, so the question was, and do you want me to defer to you or? Okay, okay, yeah. So the question, just to repeat it, was what are the observation requirements to apply when you're applying for this program? And we have a 40-hour observation requirement. How you achieve that, and I apologize if I take your thunder, how you achieve that is in multiple ways. It can be in observation, it can be as an employee at a healthcare clinic, it can be yourself as a patient can count towards some hours, it can be your caregiving for someone who has therapy or therapy needs. And we also have a free online course through our website you can access that will add 10 hours to that 40-hour observation requirement. All right, on that note, I'll hand it off to Dr. Duncan.
Let's see. All right, good afternoon or good afternoon. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, I tend to walk a lot and I have to stay here. So Amy's going to give me the evil eye if I start moving too much, right? All right, so I am Dr. Jeannie Duncan. I am the Director of Clinical Education here in the program. I do have an assistant, Deanna, whom you might have met because she also works in admission and recruitment. I believe she hosts some of the Meet Me Mondays, so you might see her, but she works behind the scenes to help me out getting a lot of the requirements, et cetera, done. I will reiterate that if you have any questions while I am talking, just raise your hand and ask them because they're important. Don't wait until the end. Clinical education comprises 1/3 of your education here in the program. So we have 42 weeks of clinical education, which is above the average number of programs around the country. And we do feel like that is a strength of our program. The minimum requirement is 30 hours for programs. We have 12 or not hours, 30 weeks. So we have 12 extra weeks built into our program because we really feel that that is where you are taking that theory that you've learned in the first 2 years of your education and applying it to the patient populations because patients in the real world oftentimes don't look like textbooks. So we do feel that this is a strength of our program. How it is split up is that we have two kind of introductory, intermediate type of placements that are sprinkled throughout the first and second year. So students in their first year, after those first 2 semesters, summer and fall, will go out on a very short 2-week placement. Kind of just gets your feet wet, kind of revalidates that this is what you want to be when you grow up. And you can start to put some of the pieces that you're learning in the program kind of to application. And then you'll go into your spring semester here didactically, and then you'll have a 4-week placement at the end of your first full year in the program. Again, just to kind of, practice those introductory skills that you learned in the first year, solidify them so then you can move on into the more advanced patient populations. And then your entire third year is essentially clinical placements. We have them split up into 4 9-week clinical placements, and those can be all over the country. So this is kind of a little bit of an older map of where our clinical placements are. So in order for students to be able to go to a clinical placement, there has to be a legal binding agreement between our program and the facility. So we have over 300, 400 type of placements or contracts out there. However, that doesn't mean that we only have 400 places that you can go. Some of our national contracts cover thousands of places. So like Concentra, Select, ATI, those are not shown on this map because those are all over the country. So, so students have some choice as far as where they go, and we can send people all over the country. You can see in some of the places there's not a whole lot of dots. Partly is just because of the fact that a lot of our students just haven't asked to kind of go there, or we haven't placed a student there in a really long time. And then you can see there's a big glump of them here in Wisconsin. We do allow our students, once they're in the program, to add to this list of clinical placements. So students can work with me directly to try and get new contracts established for organizations that maybe we are not currently affiliated with. It's really decided by myself and the facility and our legal department and is on an individual basis. So if you are from an area that we might not be able to we might not have a contract in that general area, you can come to me, we can talk about it and try and find something that will work for you. Any questions about contracts and locations? Okay.
But I am wondering if you could share such as how long have they been in that role? What is the criteria to be a CI?
Okay, so the question, if you didn't hear that, is to touch on kind of what clinical instructor requirements are. So the APTA, or our national organization, has a requirement that all clinical instructors do need to have 1 year of employment under their belt before they can start instructing students. Other than that, we don't have a ton of other requirements for our clinical instructors to be clinical instructors. So the clinical instructor is the person that is overseeing you when you're out in the clinic. We highly encourage our clinical instructors to take the credentialing courses that the APTA has. Both myself and Dr. Wanker are instructors of that course. It's a 2-day course that we highly encourage them to take, but it's not required. I think that answers the question. Did that answer the question? Okay. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
The expensive/transportation.
Okay, so I will get to that in just a second. So the question was about transportation and costs, and I'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to first talk about how students are placed, because that will lead into things, right? So our students are placed on a yearly basis, and every year the offerings that we get from our clinical partners may vary. So on March 1st, I will send out an email blast to all, 400 locations that we currently have contracts with. Those people will get back to us and let us know what they can take in the upcoming year. So students get some choice as far as how they choose those things based on how the facility has provided those placements for us. So we have a wide variety of locations that provide us placements via application. So some of these are more specialized type of organizations, such as, say, St. Jude's or Walter Reed, the Milwaukee Brewers. So these are higher level placements that are offering us placements via application. So students may submit an application for those placements, but the decision of who gets that is really based on the facility. They kind of do their application, they do interviews, etc. We have some of the placements that come to me as first come, first serve. So what does that mean? So essentially, they may have an affiliation agreement with, say, us, UW Milwaukee, and UW La Crosse, but they only have one placement. They really don't care who takes it, but they only have one placement. So the facility will send me an offering saying we have one placement, first come, first serve. So depending on which person in my role at all of those different organizations gets back to them with a specific student name, we'll get the placement. So we don't just choose a student out of the cohort and say, you're going to go to this one. Students have choice and oftentimes pick these placements based on whether or not they have housing, whether or not they know somebody that lives there, etc. And then we have a variety of placements that are kind of lottery based, meaning they are reserved for our students. We are not having to share it with another organization or school. And those are picked via like a wish list lottery automated type of process that students will rank their top 10 placements, and then an automated process will go through that to place them. So students get a lot of choice as far as where they go in this program. I never will pick up a student and plunk them in a place because of housing, because of desires, etc. That never ends well on the end of it with students, patients, clinicians, facilities, etc. So students do get a lot of choice. You just might not get your number one choice. Our program, as Dr. Wanker said, is to graduate that autonomous generalist. So we follow that through our clinical placements and have some requirements in our clinical placements for those 9-week placements. So those ones at the end of the program. So all students will have to do one 9-week placement in the following types of organizations. So all students have to complete a placement in an acute care setting, meaning in a hospital setting. So if you think about UW Health Hospital or St. Mary's or maybe St. Luke's in Milwaukee, those big hospital organizations, all students have to have one of those 9-week in there. All students have to do an outpatient orthopedic placement. That's by and large the biggest employment area and one of the biggest key areas on the licensure exam. So all of our students have to complete an outpatient orthopedic placement. And then all students have to complete a placement in what we consider this neurologic or other bucket. So what does that mean? So things such as school districts, nursing homes, like a spinal cord injury unit, maybe a concussion clinic. We've thrown in some other things into this other bucket, such as emergency room, rural health, chronic pain clinics, just because we want to ensure that students are also taking advantage of those placements. And then those specialty locations can be considered as well as they become available. So oftentimes our students will have these three, and then that fourth placement will be kind of what they're more interested in, and or quite frankly, what we get offered. So we get many, many more placements in outpatient ortho, just because of the number of people that are working in ortho. But there are some people that will maybe do a regular acute care, then maybe an inpatient peds, etc. Any questions on that? We're good? Yeah. Yeah. So great. Yeah, great question. So when are placements decided? So as you come in as a first year student, you will be choosing placements for the next calendar year. So as a first year student, you come in and you will choose that 2-week and the 4-week. That happens pretty quick because you're coming in May, June, and these placements are happening in January. So we'll be picking those placements kind of in that time frame, in that summer time frame. Then as a first year student in your spring semester, you will be picking the first 3 9-week placements, just because that's the next calendar year. And then in your second year in your spring semester, you'll be picking your final placement. So it's kind of a year in advance.
For the shorter ones, are those more localized to this area, or is that still a thing?
It really depends. I would say a lot of our offerings that we get in the lottery process are more local. However, those national contracts, we can send people anywhere. So there, it really depends on what you need as an individual student. And I'm kind of there to kind of help decide that. There is no requirements for the settings for the 2 and the 4-week placement. It is just for the 9-week placement. And if you did an acute care one for the 4-week one, you still have to do an acute care one for a 9-week one. So they don't count towards it, just because our expectation is that you're at entry level practice for all of those locations. Oh, you got a question? Yeah.
Local studio, do they?
So I guess it will depend. So the question is kind of like, if you are, renting something here as a student, like how do students kind of manage that? So those 9-week placements start in your third year, kind of at the middle of July, first part of July. Here in Madison, a lot of the rental agreements kind of go through the middle of August. So oftentimes, because we're choosing those first couple of placements early on, students will decide on whether or not they want to stay here for those longer placements, or if they want to move on and just not renew their leases. There is a lot of opportunities as students to sublease your environment, or not your apartment or whatnot. Kind of as those you're starting your clinical placements in your third year. Those first years are then kind of coming back for their first year fall. So there has been some kind of transition of those places, but it's very individual as far as how students go about doing that. Did that answer your question to some extent? I don't really know. I don't actually, maybe the students can answer that question a little bit better, but I don't really know everyone's individual living situation. Okay. So Dr. Schubert said there's also some opportunities for students as you're coming in to the program to sublet off of some of the second and third years. So to answer your question finally about cost and location, so clinical placements are considered courses, and therefore you are paying full tuition during your time as in your clinical environment in your third year. You have to be a student because you're covered under a liability insurance, et cetera, and covered under that contract. All the other costs that are incurred during the placements, housing, transportation, living expenses, all of that kind of stuff is the responsibility of the student. Therefore, students oftentimes are choosing placements based on where they have housing and where they know that they can be financially well off. So what we see oftentimes our students are like, grandma's got a condo down in Florida. I'm going to go down for that 2-week placement down in Florida because it's nice and warm, and I am going to spend 2 weeks with grandma, right? Other things, some people choose, like based on maybe that specialty placement, I really want to focus my career on inpatient peds, and my long-term goal is to go to St. Jude's to work. They might just decide, I am going to travel down to St. Jude's for this placement and I will find housing. When you become a student in the program, we do have like resources available as far as how you can maybe find some housing. There are a lot of different websites out there now that are doing that. Share Your Nest, there is for traveling nurses, traveling physicians, traveling PTs, and more student placement opportunities for housing. That answer your question finally? Is there something coming through, Amy? Nope, okay. From a clinical education, I'm going to touch on this very briefly because there is some changes and fluidity to the requirements just based on some of the changes that are happening at the CDC level. But as of right now, there are a lot of different requirements from a healthcare standpoint, background check standpoint, et cetera, that go hand in hand, not only with you being a student in the program, but also on your clinical placements. So we have background checks, drug screens, being CPR certified. We need you to have health insurance, and then these variety of vaccine requirements as seen listed. So these are the ones that are specific for our program. Facilities may have additional ones. Once you're admitted into the program, Dr. Schubert will send you information on what those standards are at the moment. And that's all I got. Any other questions?
There's like sense, but for like the clinical education, what is it typically student to high ratio?
Yep.
It's like,
Great. So the question is, while there might be different locations and different types of placements, what's the ratio of student to CIs? So I would say the far majority of them is 1 student to 1 CI. However, there are maybe about 25% of them that are either 1 student to 2 CIs or 2 students to 1 CI. Mayo, for example, in Minneapolis is 3 students to 1 CI, and they've done that for years and years and years, and they do it very, very well. They have a process, policy, and procedure, but I would say by and large, the majority of them are 1 student to 1 primary CI. That doesn't mean that you don't get to work with any other clinicians, but it is something that, you have a primary CI. But there's a lot of people out there that for that work-life balance, they're working part-time, but they still want to take a student. So they pair up 2 part-time PTs to be your clinical instructors. And there's definitely benefits to that. You get to see 2 different styles of treatment. So, but mostly it's 1-to-1. Yeah. So the question is there opportunity to do international clinical placements? And the answer is yes. but we only have one placement currently, and that is in Belize. There's some logistical things with our contracts that are a little bit challenging with the international contracts. We have one with Belize, partly because of the strong partnership that we have with the Belize clinic down there. Dr. Hartman does some global trips down there, so we have a little bit more kind of connection with them. It is very costly though, just because of kind of the travel, and that particular organization does charge students for their education on top of our tuition. But there is an opportunity. I've tried some additional international contracts, and it's oftentimes like dead in the water, so to speak, because of the legal language that we need in our contract and those. But it's not to say that I'm not willing to try. Any other questions? We're good? All right.
All right, hello everybody. I'm Jeff Hartman, associate professor here, and if you end up coming here, you'll get to know me in the first year, and I get you in the second year, and I coordinate a lot of our experiential learning with the service learning requirements of our program, as well as some of the global activities. So for better or for worse, you have a lot of chances to get to know me. So
Here we go.
Yeah.
Hold on. We good?
good. I was told I have to stay in this little space here, which I'm usually walking up and down the aisles and stuff, but that's all right. There we go. All right, so this is me, and I'm going to talk to you all about this unique opportunity that we have here at UW. And the reason why we have this in the program is because this is something that a lot of people don't know about, they haven't really thought about, and didn't even realize was an option. And what happens is there's students that get into their PT training and realize public health's kind of cool. And I kind of think that way, and man, I wish I would have known about this, because maybe I would have done this dual program here. So we want to plant the seed now, because you need to be thinking about it, need to learn more about it, and you need to be prepared to apply for this program when you apply for PT school. So that's our thinking behind all this. So this is a unique opportunity. Right now, there's only 5 other PT programs in the country that offer this opportunity to get a PT degree with a public health degree. And what you do is you apply for both programs separately, but you have to apply at the same time in that particular year. And if you get accepted, you will do your public health didactic work the first year, and then you'll step into the DPT didactic work for the next couple years. Then that last year, which would be year 4 or year 3 of your DPT training, you would combine the field work in some way. And I'd be more than happy to talk your ears off about this stuff afterwards if you have more questions about it. But really unique opportunity. I'm going to explain why this may be a good fit for you. So some of the benefits. So you get both degrees, you graduate, and some people really still want to just work in the clinic and they want to work with patients. And they're like, well, why would I do this public health degree if I'm just going to treat patients? Well, I can speak to that a bit. I believe that having that greater awareness and greater understanding of the healthcare system, community stuff, really makes you a better clinician overall. It helps you see your patient within a bigger scale, within a bigger picture. And you're equipped to address some of those factors that may be impacting your patient and why they're sitting in front of you. Or there's a lot of patients that aren't sitting in front of you for various reasons. And if you're a private practice owner or something, maybe you need to address some of those other issues so those patients have better access to your services. You're trained to, you read research differently because you're trained with a biostatistical edge, if you will. You understand epidemiology. You understand these types of things a little bit differently than your colleagues who have the DPT training only. And you interpret, you read, you use research differently to address your clinical practice. And I just feel like you have more tools in your tool bag to help that person sit in front of you, which only makes you a better clinician. If you go through the dual degree program, you have both degrees, and you say, I still want to stay at this community level. I want to work with people at a larger scale. I want to help more people. You're equipped to do that. And with your physical therapy, your disability, your rehabilitation lens, that can really be utilized in a lot of different capacities at the community level. And again, it equips you more than just the public health people to really cater to the needs of people with disabilities, with chronic diseases, and things like that. And so if you think about a lot of the health conditions that people live with, diabetes, hypertension, those big epidemics, pandemics that we exist, physical therapy and physical therapists have a role to play in the prevention and even treatment of some of those conditions. And so we have that lens to be able to bring to that public health community level things. And sometimes just the clinical lens just isn't enough. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about my experience with that in the global health arena here in a little bit. So a lot of questions I get, so okay, if I do this, like what exactly will I be able to do? And that's a hard question to answer, and you'll see why here in a minute. If you get a DPT, it's pretty tangible, right? You can work in a hospital, you can work in a clinic. You guys are all probably going to be doing observation hours. You get an idea of what a physical therapist can do. So it's pretty straightforward. Public health is, it's kind of vague. It's like, all right, I have a degree in business. What do? I do business. Public health is kind of similar. There's so many different ways to be able to work as a public health specialist. So bringing that to the PT lens, here's just some of my colleagues and friends doing some really cool stuff. And I have a friend right now who's a global health consultant, and she does a lot of work in Ukraine right now, trying to help build up the rehabilitation sector in that country. As you can imagine, it's been disrupted over the past couple of years. I have another colleague who's a consultant, and her husband and 2 kids they move every couple of years, and she works remotely. And she's a consultant for a lot of the big NGOs, non-governmental organizations around the world. And she consults with their rehabilitation programs. A lot of PTs are with public health backgrounds are working with a lot of health promotion projects in different communities around the world. And really working also at the equity level for persons with disabilities. I have a good colleague who works in Colorado, and she does a lot of advocacy work for children with disabilities and works with the families to help get them the resources and services that they need to meet the needs of their family and their child. And she works at the state level. I have a colleague in Chicago that works with some of the airline industry down there and does a lot of injury prevention with the workers for these different airline companies. I know a couple PTs who, one is an epidemiologist and the other one is a biostatistician. And obviously their work focuses on injury prevalence. It works on disability, those type of things that are specific to what we do as physical therapists. And there's a lot of this MPH degree really positions you well to take on leadership positions within the healthcare system. And so doesn't mean people with DPTs can't attain those positions as well, but MPH degrees tend to jumpstart your career as a result. So these are just some of the examples that I know with colleagues. There's a lot of PTs that have their own nonprofit organizations that address all sorts of different challenges and problems that people have from a physical perspective. And there's really a lot of unique kind of programs out there that PTs are doing, which is really cool. So there is a cost, right? Like I mentioned earlier, you have to go one extra year to get that MPH. So that means extra tuition as well as living expenses. There are some of those 5 programs out there. A few of them do roll this all together into a 3-year program. So it saves that extra year. But all the reports that I hear from a lot of the students that do that is this: you don't really get to know your public health colleagues very well because you're only with them sporadically, and you're really primarily immersed with your PT colleagues in labs and that type of stuff. So. Okay. And so the advantage is, though, because you're doing this all together, some of the credits from your PT program will apply to the MPH program. So you're able to trim down that MPH experience a fair amount, almost a full year. So in the long run, you're saving money by doing this in a combined way. So it's faster and cheaper to do it as in this dual capacity. For me, I was starting to do a lot of volunteer work. So I didn't do the dual degree program. I should have said that up front. I was PT for a number of years. I was doing a lot of work around the world, more as a volunteer. I just recognized the limitations I had with my clinical degree. I just wasn't able to do work at the scale that was needed in a lot of these communities. And so I recognized that and realized I needed to be better equipped. And a public health degree would allow me to make bigger impact at a bigger scale in some of these communities that really needed that. And so it opened a lot of doors for me and allowed me to do that. And yeah, it's led me to a variety of different regions around the world. I do work with this clinic in Belize. We have a community-based rehab program down there, and they're really doing a lot of great community-based work in addition to clinical care in Belize, which is great. So in summary, why do this? My personal opinion, it equips you to make a larger impact, either with the person sitting in front of you or at the community level. It positions you for more opportunities and gives you more flexibility in your career. You may hit that wall at 5, 6, 7 years, like, oh man, what else could I be doing? You have all sorts of things that you could do with this dual degree. It costs more upfront, but in the long run, it saves you time and money. So. Again, I'll be around. I can chat as long as you want about this, and good luck.
Any questions as we
Oh, yeah.
transition? Fair.
Asked that commented
Cut me off.
that the unique thing about the program here is sometimes they may work with engineers if it's an individual that needs some ability, like to get a job, they think that would help them do that.
Yeah. I mean, faculty are working across professions here on campus quite a bit. And, some of the research that was being done, if you look closely, there's a lot of different partners on campus, and students have the opportunity to come alongside those professors in that capacity. In the public health program, I mean, in my class alone, we had 3 veterinarians, we had a reporter, a news reporter, we had a statistician, a couple MDs, so a lot of different professions you'll have access to and gain a greater appreciation for sure. Yeah.
Oh, I was just wondering, because you said they. Do you have like an example of?
Yeah. We had one young lady last year, she just graduated, she had a clinical rotation for PT at the Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. So Monday through Thursday, she'd work 4 10-hour days. And then on Fridays, she was helping the rehab department integrate some social needs screening into their daily routine. And so that's one example of how she was able to do her public health, APEX we call it, right at the clinical site in Milwaukee. Ooh, I think I took your minute. Sorry.
At home, if you want to just take just a minute. economics and the need to sometimes switch things up a little bit. So, all right, well, I will go ahead and keep things moving forward here and talk about admissions. So my name is Amy Schubert. I'm the Director of Admissions here for UW-Madison's DPT program, and I am just one person of a whole team of individuals who do work with admissions and recruitment and outreach. And so if you've ever attended an event before that we've had, or come and had a tour, or hopped on one of our Meet Me Mondays or anything like that, you may have seen one of these other faces as well. One of them is in the back of the room. Give a shout out to Dr. Dobby. She covers a lot of our Meet Me Mondays. And she's going to be helping to conduct tours here this afternoon as well. So that's our team. All right, so in terms of admissions, I'm going to talk a little bit about our processes and philosophy for admissions. So we participate in PT-CAS, as do most programs all across the country. So I think that there's now less than 10 of the over 250 programs across the country that don't participate in PT-CAS. So we participate in that, and the cycle opens every year in mid-June. And then we do not participate in rolling admissions at all. So we have a single deadline of November 1st every year. So all of the materials have to be into PT-CAS by November 1st for your application to be considered, because we have a lot of work on our end behind the scenes to kind of keep that process moving forward, and we need everyone to be part of that. So once we determine that prerequisite requirements have been met in terms of courseworks and minimum academic requirements, at that point, our admissions committee conducts a holistic review of applications. So it really takes a look at all the other pieces of the application. We look for things that are aligned with our program and school missions here, and then make admissions decisions. So exciting this year is a little bit different in that we had gotten some feedback from applicants saying that they were wanting to have a decision a little earlier. Typically in the past, it had been in December that we had communicated those decisions, and other programs that were offering rolling admissions were letting students know about admissions decisions earlier. So I was getting a lot of asks last year, is there any way I can find out earlier? And so our admissions committee decided that they could get a turnaround done a month earlier this year. And so this cycle, all of our admissions decisions will be communicated out prior to the end of November. So if you are applying this year, that's exciting. You'll know that decision earlier. And then I do also just want to say that each of our programs across the country kind of play by what's called the ACAPT admission best practice traffic rules. And that means that no program should be asking you for a financial commitment prior to January 15th. So if you're being offered admission to other programs and they're asking you to put down a deposit, I would encourage you to just question that, because it should be really a level playing field for individuals to kind of consider all offers and then make a decision. All right, so application requirements for our program. We do require a bachelor's degree, prerequisite courses, which I'll talk about on the next slide. We do require the GRE, and we have minimums for that, which are listed here. We look at an overall GPA and have a minimum requirement for that. Science GPA as well. And this is an important thing to understand. I get a lot of questions about this. So this is calculated purely by PT-CAS, and they include courses in science GPA that they code as being science. So this includes all bio, all chemistry, all physics, all anatomy and physiology. So not just our handful of prerequisite courses, but anything that's coded as that. So the situations in which this can have a big impact is if you're someone who's a biology major, you're going to have a ton of courses that are included in this GPA calculation. Whereas if you're a kines or exercise science major, then those courses are not considered to be science based on PT-CAS's definition. So that GPA calculation might just be based on just the prerequisites for you as an individual. So I always like to kind of clarify that. And then as we discussed earlier, we do have a minimum requirement of 40 hours of observation. That can be in more than one setting or a single setting, any type of setting that you wish, just 40 hours. And then we do require a minimum of 3 letters of recommendation, and one of them must be from a licensed physical therapist. So in terms of required prerequisite courses, those are all listed here. I'm not gonna say them out loud, but we made a really conscious effort a couple of years ago. Nationally, programs made a real effort to be in alignment with these. We used to have each program would have some different nuances. We were one of them. We used to require exercise physiology, and kind of came to terms to be in agreement with programs across the country. And so this list should look fairly similar if you're applying to multiple programs in CAS. And then within the PT-CAS application, there is something called custom questions. And this is the only part of the application that will look different from one program to the other. So this is a place where each program can put together questions, enter them into PT-CAS that they want applicants to answer that are specific to their program. So each year, our admissions committee meets. We review these questions. We usually modify them a little bit. We have them available on our website, and then they're obviously in CAS right now as well. But these are things that admissions committee from that respective program are really interested in this information, right? So kind of pay special note, I would say. I can tell you that responses that are strong or that our admissions committee member really value are responses that include a lot of like reflection and kind of insight. So not just sharing that story or that experience, but really reflecting on it and sharing that reflection. Creating stories is great. Also we have a question, why UW-Madison? So that's a really important thing for our committee members is not only why do you want to be a physical therapist, but what is it about UW-Madison that makes you feel like this is your home? There's also an optional essay within PT-CAS that just asks, is there anything else you would like us to know that you haven't already shared? And that I like to tell folks is kind of like a wild card. So if you think of all the wonderful qualities, attributes, experiences that you have that you want to share with the committee, and then you think about where in the application you're going to include them, and there's one that you can't really seem to fit in somewhere, that's a great place to just include anything else that you want to share that hasn't already been captured somewhere. So we do not conduct interviews. We historically had never done interviews. This was always for more of an equity basis, and that we never wanted someone to not be considering UW-Madison because they couldn't get here for an interview. Things have certainly changed post-COVID with that, but we have remained feeling successful in admitting cohorts without doing interviews. So everything that you share is in the written PT-CAS application. And while there's no specific formula at all that makes an application strong, I can tell you that these are all things that are really valued by our committee. Again, not going to read through all of these things, but just experiences, things that sparked your interest in PT, things that are in alignment with missions, things that, again, UW-Madison, why us? All right, so we admit 40 students in each cohort, and these are just kind of the profile of the students that are currently enrolled in our program right now. Again, this is all on our website. I'm not going to go through all of it, but you can see average academic data there for GPAs as well as GREs and observation hours. I always do like to point out, in addition to the averages, is the ranges. So you can see that each year, each cohort, we admit people that are right at those minimum requirements. And, they're great students. They have, really rich experiences and goals, and are just a great match for our program. All right, in terms of the dual degree, Dr. Hartman led us off with lots of great information about what the dual degree is all about. This is just my reminder that if you are intending to apply to the dual degree, that is important to identify upfront because the application is part of the PT-CAS application. So we have a question, number 6 of our custom questions that asks, are you applying to the dual degree program? And if so, then there's the next question that you can write a response to indicate why that is. And so if you are doing that, then that part of your application would be reviewed by our DPT program, and we make a decision. If we are wanting to offer admission, then your application is then also reviewed by the MPH admissions committee, and then I will communicate that decision to you on behalf of both programs. All right, tuition and fees. So you can see this is actually just updated in August here this year. We've got resident, non-resident, and then we do have reciprocity with Minnesota as a reminder. So all in for a Wisconsin resident for all 3 years is about $60,000. And then if you are looking into the dual degree, as Dr. Hartman mentioned, it is an additional fall and spring semester. And so that added tuition is indicated there on the bottom as well. I do get this question a lot. Am I a Wisconsin resident for tuition basis? So this is something that all happens through the office of the registrar, but they are very stringent on this in that typically you have to be living in the state of Wisconsin for at least 1 full year without being enrolled in any education courses at all, not even like a continued education course, to be able to be considered or qualify to be a Wisconsin resident. So again, that's not decided by us, that's decided in the registrar's office, but students all do have to do that as part of the onboarding process for our program. And then just going back to tuition again, this is some national data here that was pulled from ACAPT again, and it kind of shows you just our tuition. So we are the yellow kind of oblong oval there, and how we compare to other in-state tuitions all across the country and how we compare to out-of-state programs across the country. So you can see the graph on the left for in-state. We offer, as Dr. Wenker mentioned, all of the great things that we have to offer about our program. We have a really high value program, especially for in-state students here. So if you are a Wisconsin resident, great program for the cost for state. Out of state, we kind of start moving a little bit more to the right side of the graph there. All right, other financial information. So we do try really hard to be transparent about financial literacy. We connect students before they even set foot on our campus with our financial liaison that's specific to our program. That's Brianne right there. And so we try to be just really upfront about those discussions. And we do have some scholarships. So we're a state institution. Most of those are a few $1,000s. They're posted where even coming in as a first-year student, you can apply for those. And then in your other years of study as well. And then as Dr. Wenker also mentioned, we do have some opportunities for instructional assistance as well. All right, on the back end, I just wanted to put data up. This was just accessed in the last year from data through the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So in terms of annual average income for PT, so you can see varies geographically. This does not take into account the setting type that a PT is working in or how many years of experience they've had. But for Wisconsin here, on average, we're kind of right around that $95,000 per year mark for annual income. And this becomes important because, again, as I mentioned, we try to just be really transparent about financial literacy and have these discussions, open the door to be open for these discussions with students right off the bat. And there's some great great work that was done by primarily Rich Shields' group out of Iowa in 2018 that then has had kind of sequential follow-up data as well on something called net present value of various health professions. And what this looks at is that every single type of degree has a point at which if a student incurs more than that in terms of student loan debt, that the potential earning income of that degree no longer really pays off. So for the DPT degree, it starts to kind of decrease in value at $100,000 of student loan debt or more. And once we get to $150,000 of student loan debt, it starts to fall below many other degrees. So again, if this is something, you can kind of begin having these thoughts and discussions based on where you're coming into things, from undergrad. And if you have debt, from there, we've had students, that I've certainly talked to that, say, okay, based on this data, I'm going to take a gap year and I'm going to work and I'm going to, pay down student loans. And, ultimately, I would say, as in general, our program and faculty really want to help set you up for success and enjoy the profession as much as we all do. So this is just one piece of that. All right, in terms of application tips, I have a bunch of them listed here. In general, I would say just don't wait until the last minute to submit. It's always disheartening when people end up not having a letter of recommendation in, or a transcript doesn't arrive or something like that. And it's so very important. We really have, especially this year with that transition to an earlier communication back with you, we really don't have wiggle room. We need to have all of that stuff in for us to kind of move forward with our process. So just giving yourself a little bit of extra time in case something doesn't come in at the time that you anticipated, you can have the opportunity to rectify that and still have your application considered. We have options for tours. We're going to have that today in person. We've got a link for virtual tours that is going to be shared for our online folks as well. If after today anybody wants to come in for an in-person tour, just reach out. We're happy to make that happen for you. And then I've got a plug just for a couple other things. We do have a mentoring program for students who are first in their family, first generation in their family to attend college to achieve a bachelor's degree. And that's where if they reach out, they can be connected with either a student who's currently enrolled in our program or has recently graduated to help with anything from GRE prep to observation hours to what sorts of classes to register and things like that. So if that's something that speaks to anyone, please reach out and let us know. And then Meet Me Mondays, this is essentially a virtual advising kind of office hour every Monday, 10 to noon. We have someone on there. It's usually Dr. Dobby. Sometimes it's myself or Deanna, but if you have any questions throughout the admissions process or anything about PT in general, we're happy to talk about it and we are available. And then Sue made a plug for this earlier, but new this year, we created an Intro to Physical Therapy course. So if you're looking to grab an extra 10 hours of physical therapy observation in order to apply, we created this course. It has 10 modules. It's all completely online. And it will count for 10 hours of observation for our program specifically. So this won't count for other programs that you may be interested in, but it's a great opportunity to explore the profession a little bit more. A lot of resources are from our national organization, and you can check it out here. And then ways to stay connected. If you're not already following us on social media, our Instagram page at UW-Madison DPT is the handle, primarily student-led, lots of great videos in terms of what a day in the life is here. So again, if you're trying to kind of envision yourself here and what a day would be like, there's some great opportunities there. If you're not already on our mailing to get invited to events like this, that is a great place to enter your name and email address. And otherwise, I thank you very much. And I think we've kept the same amount of time, but.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Are there any courses that are not prerequisites, but are recommended for incoming?
That's a good question. Actually, the Okay, so the question is, are there courses that aren't prerequisites that are recommended? And I wouldn't say necessarily recommended, but there was interestingly a poll that went out to all programs across the country asking exactly that, if you could, choose one other course. And the most popular that, again, not specific to our program, but in general, that programs answered was exercise physiology. So it was that prerequisite that, some programs used to have, and it was the one that they had given up, and they were probably the ones that responded primarily with that question. But, I think it does give a basis. If you have a hole in your schedule to stay a full-time student and you're, have an opportunity, then I would say that was probably the most popular. Yeah.
Hours, how does like your own experience in PT, like does that count towards shadowing hours?
Yeah, great question. The question is, do your own experience and hours as a patient yourself in PT count towards observation? And they do. That just changed either 1 or 2 years ago in PT-CAS. And it's literally when you go in the PT-CAS application to enter your experience, it's like what type of setting, and you click that you were, a patient yourself. And then you do have to still have those signed off. So whichever PT you worked with or clinic or something, have a representative sign off. Yeah.
That this could be done virtually. How long does this take to process?
So we have, in terms of admissions, we do have a program, a supplemental program admissions fee, which is $50. And the link for that is in the PT-CAS application to pay. That will show up to us on an automated report 24 hours later. So, and again, in terms of admissions deadline, as long as you pay by November 1st and then it shows up on the November 2nd report, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so the question is, in addition to observation hours that are specific to PT, do we look for or perhaps value observation in other health professions like OT or AT or something like that? It's not, I wouldn't say something, in particular that we look for. However, if that's part of kind of in your individual journey as an applicant to determine that PT is the right field for you, or if you can speak to some, again, reflection of, making part of your perspective of interprofessional collaboration and, part of that story, then we would love to hear about it. Sorry, what was the price? Okay, so the question is about programs who do early admit, or the kind of more accepted language right now, I would say, is rolling admissions. And so we do not do rolling admissions. Again, we have that single deadline. This is a way that we really value kind of an equitable approach on reviewing applications. So just because you're maybe not the first person to get an application submitted doesn't mean you're not one of the strongest. So we do really look at that equitably. I can say that, programs who do that rolling admissions and offer, I would again just really encourage students to be mindful that they shouldn't be asked to have a financial commitment for enrollment. So everyone should be able to wait. That's really on behalf of the benefit of applicants to be able to collect admissions offers from all programs and then make a decision that's best for you. Okay, all right, and then we'll transition to the student panel. Their mic is not working very well. I can.
Always pass it down too.
Yeah. Okay.
Well.
Okay, so first we're just going to introduce ourselves. So my name is Isabel. I am a second year PT student and I went to undergrad at Northern Illinois University.
My name is Bryce Herlash. I am a first year here, and I did my undergrad at Oshkosh, so UW Oshkosh.
My name is Noah Mikulski. I am a first year and I did my undergrad at UW Eau Claire.
Hi, I'm Darren Tamondong. I'm a first year here and I did my undergrad at the University of Guam.
My name is Liam. I'm a first year here and I did my undergrad here.
My name is Adam. I'm also a first year and I did my undergrad at the University of Oklahoma.
And then my name is Rachel. I'm also a first year, and I went to University of Connecticut.
There we go. Nice. Perfect. Don't move. Okay, so the floor is open for questions.
Yes. Are any of you teaching assistants?
So the question is if any of us are teaching assistants. So I am a TA. I work at the Writing Center. This is my second semester doing so. I really enjoy it. It's definitely a balance, and kind of like Dr. Winker spoke to, it's an individual assessment of what you can manage with your time, and always emphasizing that my schoolwork is my priority, and I work with really great people who also understand that. And I have a fairly flexible schedule on their end, but it's definitely something that is manageable depending on what you think would work best for you.
Question online. One is to hear what you love about the atmosphere of the program. One is your favorite service learning opportunity, is how the collaborative learning space and classroom has made an impact.
Okay, so I'll just repeat the three parts and then we can talk about it. So, and let me know if I summarize correctly. The first question, what is the first question? Okay, we will start with the first question, which is what do we like most about the atmosphere, or what kind of we enjoy about the atmosphere here?
Something that I've really enjoyed is the fact that all 40 people in your cohort are in class together pretty much all the time, especially during the summer. So you're going to become very close with everybody very quickly, and you're going to make some very good friends pretty fast.
Yeah, I can just add on to that too. Like you make friends really quickly and everybody's super friendly. So it's kind of hard to pass up on that kind of atmosphere. You know, you get really close with everyone and you spend a lot of time with the same people, but it's really good. Yeah.
I think, yeah, just to piggyback off of that, like our cohort's amazing. The second and third years have been really great in like giving us advice, and like their kind of work as IAs help us like prepare for like our skill checks and practicals and all of that. Also, our faculty and our staff are really great. They feel kind of like family. You kind of they have open doors pretty often, so you can always just come in, chat with them. Anything that's on your mind, they're pretty open to answering any questions.
Sure, I'll take it. So, outside of classwork, I feel like a lot of us get together, especially at the sporting events. So a lot of tailgates for football games, and I've been to a few volleyball and hockey games already. So even outside of schoolwork and studying, we still make an effort to get together and hang out.
Yeah, and I'll just speak a little bit more on the open door policy because it's something that has really helped me talking through like questions from professors or a class concept or how's your day or really anything. You can just stop in and have a great conversation and talk things through about school or life. So we are able to really interact between cohorts and with our professors as well, which is really valuable and does give it a family feel.
So I will speak more from the perspective of like a non-traditional student, so taking a couple years off. The atmosphere that I have coming back to school is exceptional. So I was quite concerned about coming back and just with the workload. And the professors do a really good job of making sure you are prepared, not only from like academically, but like also making sure that you're able to work with your cohort really well. So that's one thing I loved about the atmosphere right away.
Awesome. Okay, what about favorite service learning opportunity?
I'm going to take the easy one. Sorry, guys. Pro bono. I just was at week 2 of pro bono, which is the neuro clinic that we have as volunteers. And as a first year, you learn a lot really quickly. You learn what you kind of do know and you start to put that into practice, but you really start to know like what you don't know, which is the most important part of this education is you really want to start to apply and understand what you can do more for not only your patients, but like also for the other aspects of this career. So.
There are so many, which is really great. I'll speak to one that just happened recently for the second years, which was Baby Lab. So we had the opportunity to work with families and children from birth to 18 months. And they came in and we were able to observe them, do assessments, and just learn about treating the pediatric population. And then we have a toddler lab coming up as well. So being able to work with patients of all different ages and different stages of development is really valuable. So I've really enjoyed that this year.
So us as first years, we've only just started pro bono, so not too much for service learning yet. But I feel like we can all agree that pro bono has been pretty fun so far, especially these first 2 weeks, just meeting our patients, meeting our clients, and then also learning from our second year students, kind of getting some tips and tricks from them since they've been volunteers as a first year. So it's been really helpful with our growth and development as aspiring PTs.
All right, and how has the collaborative learning classrooms made an impact on your learning?
Rachel.
Wait, now I gotta think of.
You got it.
I got it. Hold on. Let's put on the spot here. All right, so for collaborative learning, I would say it's been super helpful because a lot of times, a lot of the professors have kind of been using like a flipped learning environment. So we watch the videos, kind of get the content beforehand, and then more so during class, we kind of talk with them and like actually apply what we learned outside of class. So that's been really cool because we'll like work through cases and all of us it's really unique to see a different perspective from each of your like fellow classmates, because there are a lot of times where I would think of something and be like really focused on a certain thing, whereas someone else would point out something completely different. And especially learning how to collaborate with people who are kind of like think the same but also think differently, I think has been really unique. Just because I know that I can be sometimes very like narrow-minded. So this has been a really great opportunity for me to like kind of open up and see a different perspective.
Right, next question. Can someone speak to what a typical day-to-day or week-to-week looks like as a PT student, including spending time in class, studying, personal time, etc.?
Yeah, this first semester of the fall, at least, most of our classes start pretty early in the morning and we usually get out by noon or 2, which is pretty nice. So you have the rest of the day to yourself. You can study if you need to. Otherwise, there's plenty of time to do what you need for yourself, hang out with friends, do what you're interested in.
Yeah, I'd say pretty much the same thing. It's definitely you have to study, so there's a lot of outside of class time, but it feels really balanced. The summertime also start pretty early and end at noon, I think every day, right? Yep. And that's good, but just a lot of studying time, but it is very balanced. So.
Yeah, so just to piggyback, like, we do start pretty early, but I think one of the benefits of getting out early is I think like sometimes we'll get a group together right after class. We'll group study either at the library, well, when it wasn't busy at the summer, but now kind of just taking advantage of like the open learning spaces that we have here, the whiteboards, and in the summer when we had advantage of like going into the anatomy labs. I think group study is pretty important, being able to quiz each other, kind of like poke at different questions, ask different perspectives. But I think like there's also a good amount of time for yourself, and Madison's been a pretty beautiful city to explore. And yeah.
Yes, so for the second year, I would say that we don't end as early. Um, but I think it depends on the day of the week. So some days we have like earlier labs, and some days we just have lecture. So like Mondays and Fridays are more lecture, Tuesday and Thursday more lab, and then our exam block is on Wednesdays. But we have some like breaks throughout the day, and it's definitely an adjustment, but still there's plenty of time to be able to study, do the things you need to do in your own life, and collaborate with classmates.
All right, the next question. I know that rent and housing prices have increased in Madison, and I was wondering how you deal with high living costs in the area when you are also going to school and cannot work much, and have you been able to find affordable living situations?
So I feel like I have a pretty atypical living experience, but I actually qualified for income restriction. So I live a couple miles off campus, but 60% income restriction has been pretty nice. So instead of paying over 2,000 a month, I'm only paying 12, and I'm splitting that with someone else. So it's been fairly reasonable for price.
So being a non-traditional student, I actually live in Monona, so a little bit away out of here, so I commute. And I would say prices decrease a little bit outside of Madison. I wouldn't say a whole lot. But granted, I do live with my like significant other, so we do split the rent, but it's still fairly expensive. But those loans that you kind of take out for school can help with that, depending on how fluid you are with those. So also working beforehand, highly recommend. So.
And I found my housing through the resources that Dr. Schubert provided. So there were PT students living where I live now before that. So that was just a really great opportunity because I didn't live in Madison before. So it gave me a way to kind of find some places that other people had lived. And it was fairly, I mean, it's pretty affordable as well. So it's really nice to get resources from Dr. Schubert too.
Specifically for the cadaver labs. Oh, sorry. So the question was like, what type of access do you have to the certain labs, more specifically to the cadaver labs, correct?
Yeah, or just like other relevant.
Okay. So specifically to the cadaver labs, you have access pretty much with your whiz card. So like your ID, student ID card, except for like, I think it's 12 hours before our practical, which makes sense. They have to set up. Besides that, you have access to the entire building and the labs with your card to get into the building. And then you can have, we think, punch codes for all the doors. So you're able to use it whenever you like. We also have keys that you can ask for permission to use. So pretty much anytime you want. HSLC, I believe we have access as well 24/7. So same thing, you scan in. And I think there's certain levels that have restricted hours, like I think the library is restricted at certain days, maybe.
So for those of you that don't know, HSLC is the Health Sciences Learning Center. It's it's where the medical students and other students in SMPH or the School of Medicine and Public Health study and learn. We do have full-time access. The building just closes at a certain point and then you have to scan in. But regardless, we do have access, which is really nice. And sometimes it's nice to have a change of scenery, so we can go over there.
Right, next question. What has been the most challenging part of the DPT program thus far?
All right. So I would say most challenging part, at least for me, this is not like a brag or anything, but I would say during undergrad, I feel like I kind of coasted by a little. I feel like I did pretty well in a lot of my classes. And then coming here, definitely not the case. I'm not gonna lie, I did not pass my first exam, which is totally okay. But that was like kind of like a little bit of a warning bell, like, okay, I actually need to like switch things up and like dedicate myself more to my schoolwork. So that was something that was really difficult for me to process because I'm used to like being able to go through things pretty easily and not have to work too hard, which sounds really bad. But this school and the learning opportunities here have really like given me that chance to kind of like be able to dedicate more of myself to that. And that was definitely something that I was really struggling with in the beginning. So, but I feel like I'm doing pretty well right now. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is just adjusting to the increased workload. Like you're going to have to work a little harder. It's a doctorate program. It's going to be a little bit more challenging than undergrad. So you kind of just have to work or figure out what works best for you in terms of studying and preparing for your exams. I was in a similar boat, like in undergrad, I kind of just coasted through, but I found that group study works really well. Like there's a big group of us that'll get together after class, talk about what we learned that day, go over some other stuff. And the other nice thing is like once you're here, everybody's working together. You all want to see each other succeed. There's no more competing with your classes. You're in the program, you made it. Everyone wants to see each other pass. So everybody's going to be very happy to help you.
Yeah, I'd say that, you know, when you start the program, you kind of hit the ground running. Like you go like 100% that first week. There's like no syllabus week. So that was something to get used to, but you know, it's really rewarding long term. You really learn how to work hard and build connections and like work together because yeah, like Adam said, there's no more competing. Like we're not trying to get into a PT program anymore, like we're in. So no, it's really good. It's just, you know, you go fast.
I think there are some times where maybe you feel like you might not grasp a certain subject or topic, and you feel like sometimes other people around you may have a better understanding, and sometimes you get that imposter syndrome where like you don't feel like, you know, you don't belong, or like, am I really going to be able to keep up with this? But I think having like a great support group around you, and I think just being fortunate to be around these guys, like kind of helped me like believe in myself, but also like, you know, kind of just get that mental aspect, right? Like, you know, I'm here for a reason. I got this. Just I think being able to practice that confidence and like understanding that you may not know everything, but you know, being able to understand everything is, or at least, you know, what you can is kind of key.
So the most difficult thing for me, which I think has also been difficult for everybody else, is kind of just being willing to change your learning style. So undergrad, I feel like was very, you know, you get a professor, they go through the slides and then you kind of do the same thing to study. But in the DPT program, it's very hands-on, it's very interactive, especially in the lab sessions. So just being willing to like make sure you know when to study by yourself, when to study in group settings, I think is very important.
I'll just say quickly, I think what's been challenging for me is that there's not always a clear answer in physical therapy, and that's okay. And every patient's different, and learning how to adapt and how to kind of be comfortable in the area of not knowing or just kind of going out into the clinic and things being different. I think it's a learning curve, but it's been really valuable to experience that, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do so through clinicals.
Bryce, this might be a great one for you to take. It's a question about accessibility of parking and driving on campus and transport that's recommended. So since you're coming from off campus.
Yeah. Yeah, so commuting I will say it's a little bit of a hassle, just because you are applying for parking per se if you are driving. So I think starts right away in the beginning of like towards the end of our summer semester. You are applying for a parking permit, and that can be per semester or per the year, and it's kind of a lottery system. Before summer, or like for that big first summer semester, I was parking here on the ramp and I think it was like $15 a day. But I was treating my class schedule more like a job. So I'd show up early, probably about like 7 o'clock, study for an hour, go to classes, got done at noon and stayed until 4. So from that 7 to 4 is that $15 marker. Um, Granted, does rack up a little bit of a penny. Otherwise, you can find certain places like around here where you can get a different parking spot. If you attended undergrad here, I'm sure you can find some of those locations as well. There's bus systems. You get a free bus pass as a student, so you can use that depending on where you're living. And Madison's a pretty bike friendly community as well. So during that summer and like when it's nice out, biking is awesome. I know several of our classmates do that pretty daily. So
Next question is, what is the one thing you absolutely love about the program so far?
I think I just love the collaboration and the joy. Like everywhere you go, it's just there's someone you can talk to, everyone's smiling, there's someone that will pick you up if you're down, and we're really all working together. It truly is a collaborative environment, and I think that's so valuable, and you really get to learn about people, what they think, how they problem solve, and I just think that's really awesome.
So this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think my most favorite thing has been studying and the study groups outside of class, just because we all get along really well. And it's always a great time going over material and going over slides together.
I think I can't stress enough like how much the collaboration within our cohort has been great. But just to give another one, I think the structure of the program that summer semester was very cohesive, and we're like, I think all of our classes, you're learning the same thing, just kind of like at a different in a different way. Like you'll be learning the anatomy, kind of like the inside, right? The dissections, and then like in another class, you'll be learning the surface anatomy, right? How can you find these on like the human body from a PT perspective? And kind of we're going through the same thing right now in fall, and kind of just really enjoy the structure where it's like everything kind of clicks.
Yeah, I would just say that the atmosphere here is great. Everybody's so happy to be here. Everybody brings each other up, and I really haven't had a day here where everybody's been in a bad mood. You know, everybody's always happy. It's good to be here. It's a good environment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're all having pretty similar answers, but the whole community feel, I think, is my favorite thing. Like the whole open door policy with all the professors, really makes it feel like a family. And with how quickly things come at you in the summer, you're kind of like baptized by fire, and that brings people together pretty quick. And you'll be very surprised how quickly you'll make very good friends.
And then again, kind of going same thing that everyone else has said, but specifically the professors I have noticed have been like super they're very interested in you and who you are as a person and kind of your life. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've had a few days where I was not as happy. And the professors will notice, and like I've had talks with professors and they'll double check on me and like, hey, like noticed you were a little off today, just wanted to make sure that everything was okay. And like I have cried to the professors before. I'm not afraid to admit that. But I mean, it's just part of life. Like everyone's not going to have the best day ever every single day. And they have been a really great support system. Like I've noticed they just reach out at any point if they notice something is a little off with you, because you kind of get to know each other very quickly. So I've really appreciated the professors and how interested they are in you. I just have a question for admissions. When did you prepare for
It's been a while. It's been a little while since we went through the whole admissions process, but I believe I took mine in like the middle of July, the same year that I was applying.
Just at least 2 weeks prior to November 1st in terms of work weekdays. So to allow a minimum of 2 weeks for those lead from ETS to I think there was another question.
Yeah.
I was wondering if any of you guys had like kind of non-traditional undergrad majors and how that transition was.
So the question was like how our journey was if you had like a non-traditional major. So I think, is everyone here like exercise science, biology, pretty much? Can you use, yeah. So I'm probably the only one that's gonna be a little different. I was an animal science major actually. So for my first 2 years of undergrad, I thought I wanted to go to vet school and like I was all in on that. And then I took a class in my undergrad and I was like, wait, actually, I do kind of like physical therapy. I forgot how much I like biomechanics. I forgot how much I like rehabilitation. So then I kind of switched gears a little. So it was very nice because a lot of the classes kind of did have a little overlap. So I already took bio, I took chem, I took organic chemistry, which is not a requirement. Highly don't recommend if you don't have to take it. So that was super helpful because I did have a lot of overlap, but like classes like psychology, human anatomy and physiology never taken because I took animal anatomy and phys. So just like knowing that I kind of had to get those out of the way. I actually graduated a year early. So that was super helpful because during that last year, I just worked as a rehabilitation aide and then also did my other classes. So I took human anatomy and phys at a community college. So that was super helpful because I also got to save a decent amount of money that I could now use for my grad or for my school right now. So I would say it's definitely, don't be afraid if you don't have a traditional major, because if anything, it gives you a little bit of an edge. Like a lot of my essays were talking about how I had a different perspective from everyone else because I worked with animals for 5 years before that. So definitely don't be afraid. Like if it's not traditional, you can definitely still get into physical therapy school. I know we even have like dance majors and econ majors and stuff like that. So definitely don't be afraid of that.
More involved in like research and
So I'm actually involved in both. I'm involved in the sports elective, which starts in your second year. And in the summer, actually, I also did a CSCS elective for strength and conditioning. So I'm really enjoying both. I enjoyed CSCS. I'm enjoying the PT sports elective now. And it's not a lot of extra work on your plate, and it enhances what you're learning in all of our classes, which is great. In terms of research, I'm working at Badger Athletic Performance with Dr. Knurr, working on a couple different studies, but it's really valuable just to learn more about like how research is conducted and how that perspective can help me in the clinic. So I've really enjoyed both, and there's so many opportunities here to find ways to enhance what interests you. So that's something I've really enjoyed.
I will also say, I do know some of my classmates are doing research, but not specifically like with our program. So that's also a huge opportunity since it is UW-Madison. There's a huge broad net that you can kind of cast out and see what really interests you. So.
So we will.
Two more.
Okay.
When you guys were initially applying, what interested you most? Made you want to apply to Madison, especially those of you that are from out of state, further away?
So for me, it's not really going to apply. My partner is also a student here, so we're both doing our doctorate programs here. So it was kind of an easy deal for me, but for the out-of-staters.
No, you go. I feel like I'm talking a lot.
So I would say something that was really drew me to UW-Madison. Well, I went to UConn for my undergrad, but I'm originally from like northern Chicago suburbs. So I would say being away from home for my entire undergrad kind of took a little bit of a toll on me. So I'm really glad that I was able to come back here. One thing that really drew me specifically to UW-Madison in the Midwest area was their cohort size. So being only 40 students, you really get to know everyone around you. And like, it's not like some other schools. I know their program has over 100 students, over 200 students. And like, I feel like it's very hard to learn in that kind of environment. Granted, like you do get more perspectives, but also at the same time, you don't get as much one-on-one collaboration with like your professors or like meeting with a certain classmate. Like we all kind of know each other very well, I think, at this point. So that was really something that really drew me here.
So I think for me, a couple of important things about Madison is, so I'm from Guam, which is a while away from here. And so I think so I have family in Milwaukee, and I think visiting the Midwest, I kind of really enjoyed my time here. I really enjoyed the vibe and that kind of like family environment that it has back home. But also looking at the program itself, the outcomes and the high licensure and pass rates. I think just a lot of testimonies that I heard and like did research on and connecting with alumni and some of the second and third years is just like, like that great collaborative, that family environment. And that was just kind of one thing that, really stood out to me about Madison.
And then the students will be doing tours as well. So you'll have an opportunity to ask additional questions. We just have one last one online, and this is specific to Isabella as a second year who has had clinical placements already. What are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've really enjoyed having clinical education integrated into the first year. I think it gives that 2-week one, kind of like Dr. Duncan said, gets your feet wet and kind of just gives you a little perspective about what you're learning in the classroom and how you can apply it to patients. And it's that passion that comes back for like, this is why I'm doing this. I'm going to work with patients, and it's really a cool experience. The 4-week one is transformative because you pretty much have that first year of knowledge under your belt so you can apply it. And I think it's just a really cool way to continue to apply what you're doing. And then in our 9-week ones, we'll have all of the didactics. So along the way, we get to learn in the clinic and in the classroom, which I think is really helpful.
Everyone, go ahead and head on back. They're going to be your tour guides in just a moment. And as they transition, I don't know, I can't express my gratitude for the students that we have in this program. And they do have good and bad days, right? But overall, the good kind of outweigh the bad, right? And I don't know, I'm just so proud of the faculty, the staff, the students. We welcome questions. We're here to share what we have. Every PT program has a lab. Every PT program has a classroom. It's the things you can't see in our program that I think draw people to the program, and that's a point of pride for us. So on this note, the folks who are online, Tim is going to post the virtual link into the chat for you to take a virtual tour. The folks who are here, Dr. Dobby is in the back, and she is going to organize you in about groups of 10 to take a tour led by one of our students. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Okay. Oh, yes, thank you. And one last point for people online and in person, watch for an email next week because we value your input in your experience in today's session. And we want to continue to move it forward and be progressive in what we do to meet your needs as potential applicants. So I think on that note, Dr. Dobby will take it from here.